So we brought Andy McCarthy in, former assistant U.S. attorney, Fox News contributor. Andy, it's been a minute. Nice to have you back with us. The assistant AG, thank you, Harmeet Dillon, said this: I've instructed our criminal prosecutors in the DOJ Civil Rights Division to open a civil rights investigation into this violent attack. I realize it's early, 12 hours, but what questions do you have about pursuing that?
Well, I think it's very curious, Bill, that we don't know the name of the person yet, even though there seems to be some background investigation of other potential, at least surveilling of Jewish targets. So to me, that's curious. I always think with these hate crimes situation, the thing is that you want to take care of the crime first. Usually the hate piece of it will take care of itself. As a prosecutor, you want to make sure, obviously it looks like it's easy enough to prove that there were acts of violent assault here, even though thankfully nobody got hurt. But you have to, of course, prove the other piece, which is the state of mind of the person you're dealing with.
Interesting. We don't know the name, but eventually that dribbles out. We'll see whether or not we get that this morning or a bit later today. Andy, there's a new operation at the federal level to root out fraud in America. I'll read you two things. First is the Truth Social post by the president. I'm pleased to nominate Colin McDonald to serve as the first ever assistant AG for National Fraud Enforcement, a new division of the Department of Justice, which I created to catch and stop fraudsters that have been stealing from the American people. Together, we will end the fraud and restore integrity to our federal programs. Before I get you to answer that, Andy, this is the claim right now from the GAO. We estimate that the federal government could lose between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. What do you think of the gentleman who was appointed, Mr. McDonald, and is it a good idea?
Well, I think the guy that they appointed, Bill, seems to be very qualified, and if it's a legal position, he should be able to be confirmed. My question would be whether it's a legal position. The executive branch can't just create assistant attorney general slots. They're actually creatures of legislation. Congress has created a number of them. I think there are 11 in federal law now. So if the president has already filled those 11, he's got a problem in terms of rejiggering the org chart as Congress has made it for the DOJ. So there's that problem. There already are very good fraud. I'm sorry?
Yeah, he could do that.
I don't know if he can or he can't, because with respect to a lot of these positions, Congress has prescribed the work the AAG is supposed to do. So you have an antitrust division, a national security division, criminal division, civil division. You can't, Congress has created these positions. So I know the president likes to think that he can kind of wave a wand and create things, but that's not always how it works in the government. And the other problem you have is we already have fraud units in the criminal division and the civil division that have done much of the work that the Justice Department is touting, particularly in Minnesota. If we have a significant fraud problem in the country, which we undoubtedly do, it's not because of the Justice Department.
Okay, if you could claw back $500 billion, I think it would be massively popular. Andy, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back, okay? We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Interesting, Greg, because Tim Walz let his National Guard troop deploy.
Yes.
And that's when he conveniently got out of the military.
Yes, he'll be running again if there's a war.
So how does he go from I'm gonna whoop J.D. Vance's arse to I'm never running for office again in 48 hours?
Well, it's not Kamala's fault. She didn't kill Walz's career. Sunlight did. The guy was able to succeed because he was in the shadows. Nobody knew who he was. He operated in the darkness of layered bureaucracies, where corruption and ineptitude can fester and flourish like an open sore. And then as long as every palm is greased in these nether regions, nobody knew. And it worked. It worked for a while, but then the ego enticed Walz out of his sinicured lair. He liked the sound of Vice President Walz. Surely they won't dig into his past or look at his books. And they did. And then he's like, well, wait a second. And then suddenly he's the patsy. And now we're in this era of the peeling back of the Band-Aid. Nick Shorter, pulling the bandage back. And we see the sores of corruption, Dana. And it's happening all over. The BLM charities, the voting systems, the homeless rackets, the climate scams. Doge may be done, but the mindset has been unleashed, and it seems unstoppable.
Well, Dana, the one thing that he said that was actually true was it's not just happening in my state.
Right.
So it's not just the corruption in Minnesota, it's the incompetence of the candidate and the governor. Was he ever viable?
No, I don't think so. And I also really disagree with the headline. I don't think Kamala Harris ruined his career. She provided rocket fuel to his career, and then he got exposed, as Greg was saying, in the lair.
He exposed himself.
And that was disgusting.
Yes.
And I will never forget it. And so it's the obvious stuff, right? He was bad in the debates. He was bad in the interviews. One of the things your vice presidential candidate is supposed to do is expose the other side, get under their skin, be the attack dog. And he wasn't. And he said something along the lines of he gave JD the benefit of the doubt in the debate, rather than actually, no, he had never had a competitive race. And that's another thing that I think is a good lesson of all of this. You can vet the people through. You can say, okay, we're going to ignore this $9 billion in fraud that he let happen to his constituents. But if you are trying to run somebody who has never had a competitive race, they're likely not to do very well.
Yes, and to Dana's point, like, you are supposed to be the enforcer. Vance has always known that. He has known that he's Trump's enforcer, and he actively goes after people, and Walz didn't have that skill set. Do you believe that if there was a redo, if somehow he was the candidate in 2028, that...
Walz? That's funny. No, I mean, he's going nowhere. This is the perfect example of the more incompetent you are, the higher you rise in Democrat politics.
And at Fox.
You have shows, don't you? Walz, Biden, Harris, Newsom, de Blasio, Karen Bass. These are people who are dumb. They look a certain way and they get elevated and told what to say. And the more power they get, the more exposed they get. And you see all of them crashing to the ground. He was only chosen because Kamala needed a Midwestern white guy yes man who was non-threatening. And he goes out and you look at his resume, it's death and riots and fraud, and he bombs the debate. The reason he's not running again is just because he's not going to win. He's going to hand the governor's office back to a Republican. So he cuts a deal with Amy, who eats a salad with a fork or a knife or a comb, whatever she does. She's ridiculous. They're so scared of Republicans winning power, they'll do anything. Meanwhile, there's so much fraud under this guy's hood. He's trying to run away because he's broke, and now he has to defend himself for the next couple years. Vance looks so good. Think about it. What an indictment of Kamala Harris. Trump picks Vance. Everyone's like, don't pick Vance. That's too risky. Meanwhile, she picks this guy, and he's out of a job in a year. Vance now is polling ahead of every Republican in the primary, and this is an indictment of Harris more than anything else.
Is it?
No, it's not. I kind of think
You think she picked him and that was a good choice?
He said that Pete Buttigieg was too gay and Josh Shapiro was too Jewish.
And his wife didn't have enough money for good hair and makeup. Yeah, I know. I've read all of it. I think it's kind of a non-story. I think it is about his own career and this fraud scandal, and not that he's been personally implicated in it, but it was a lot of swirl about it, and it was going to dog him the entire time that he was running for it. And
but they didn't vet him about the fraud
Well,
scandal?
that has confused me still that didn't come out, because it seems like there was a vetting process, obviously, that went on. And they asked Walz, according to Josh Shapiro's new book, obviously to him about Israel, and that Walz was asked about China. So there were conversations about things that could come out on the trail that would not be great. But, you know, the Republican Party wanted to get Walz out for sure. And now they have Amy Klobuchar, who is one of the more popular politicians that you're going to find. You dismissed her. I don't know why. She's hugely effective and is going to win.
She's a terrible speaker.
Why is she so effective?
What?
She sounds...
What's so good about Amy Klobuchar?
Well, she delivers for her people at home.
What are you talking about? Delivers what?
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said.
Like,
tell me about Amy. Why is she so great? What bills? What?
She has no sense of humor. She is not persuasive.
Is this a joke?
There's no... Everything she does comes off as a cringe. Yeah, don't you remember every time she tried to do something, people would just go, God help us, where did this thing come from?
Her staff hates her. It's the only staff that hates her more than Kamala's staff.
No. That's not.
She eats her salad with a fork and she washes her hair with a spoon.
Oh, I get where you were going with it. Anyway.
She did stay in the race longer than just about any other Democrat in 2020. And she would have outlived Joe Biden. If he had picked her as his vice president,
yeah.
It would be a very different time.
Talk to Leader Thune. We've laid out a plan, and that's the way to go. And that's where we're headed.
A government shutdown is not in anybody's interest. I hope we can get this thing back on track. We need to fund the government.
Senate Republicans right now are trying to save Americans from another government shutdown, Democrat-led, of course. They're about to hold a test vote on the government spending package. It has 6 bills in it. Democrats are refusing to fund nearly 80% of the government. And what's interesting, obviously the House has passed this. So there's no time to reverse order, send it back to the House, do all this stuff. This happens tomorrow at midnight. We go back into what we just saw. Democrats are opposing one of those 6 bills that's in this package because it funds the Department of Homeland Security. And they are demanding new restrictions on federal agents in the field trying to arrest criminal illegal immigrants. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford.
What Democrats are saying is what they negotiated 6 days ago is not enough. They actually want more now, and they want to go back at it. So they've already added into the bill itself body-worn cameras, all kinds of different new training for agents that are in the field. And now they're saying, hey, that's not enough. We want even more on it. And they're threatening a government shutdown if they don't get it.
In focus now, Ben Shapiro, host of The Ben Shapiro Show. It's my understanding that DHS is already funded. So what are they trying to do here, Democrats?
I mean, it seems like an optic move. Obviously, they're trying to demonstrate to their base that they are very resistant to ICE. The best way to do that, of course, is to hold up the business of government as per our usual arrangement. It is unclear to me what their demands are at this point. There was some talk earlier this week that Democrats were actually demanding that only judicial warrants be used in ICE apprehensions, which, of course, would mean basically the end of all ICE apprehensions, since the vast majority of ICE apprehensions happen with an administrative warrant, not a judicial warrant. And so it seems to me, again, that this is another performative move by Democrats in an attempt to undermine President Trump's immigration policy by connecting it with defunding the rest of the government, which is quite popular, is the actual funding of the government.
Yeah, Ben, that's such an interesting point. It's so important for people to understand because it's more of the maneuvering and the behavior that they're showing than it is about actual money. They want ICE to go away, and they want to run on that. It didn't work out in the past, but I guess they're going to try to abolish ICE in a different way. I want to show you
I think that's right.
Yeah, go ahead. Quick response to that, and then I'm going to show you a clip of former President Obama on this issue.
Again, I think that the Democrats are sort of arguing with themselves here a little bit, because I think on the one hand, they would like to see ICE go away rhetorically, but if ICE were to go away, then they end up defending the same sort of open borders policy that projected President Trump back into office the second time.
All right, that clip of former President Obama back in 2010 is going viral over his comments defending the deportations of illegals. Watch this.
There are those in the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status. And often this argument is framed in moral terms. Why should we punish people who are just trying to earn a living? I recognize the sense of compassion that drives this argument. But I believe such an indiscriminate approach would be both unwise and unfair.
What do you hear him saying there?
I mean, I think that what he's saying, obviously, is that mass amnesty for everybody is a bad idea. The problem is that he then proceeded to try and pursue mass amnesty in his second term by essentially legitimizing the Dreamers and making the overt case that ICE should really not do what it is that ICE has been doing. And this, again, is the Democratic way of doing immigration policy, is that you sort of do the de minimis approach. When you are pressured because policy has bad consequences, then you ramp it up, but then you deny that you ever ramped it up. But then when it turns out that your open borders policies are unpopular, you go back to claiming that you actually did a great job on the border. And the reality is that the consistent approach the Trump administration is taking, which I think is best represented by Tom Homan, who is tremendous at laying out the policy and is very staid and consistent in the way that he does so, that is the popular approach with the American people. Immigration remains, despite all of this, the bright spot in President Trump's polling right now.
Well, you know who else thought that? Barack Obama. He gave him a presidential award for the job that Tom Homan did. And Obama deported 5 million people on his watch. Reporter-in-chief. So he would agree with you. Let's get to this. Elected Democrat celebrities and others are on the left taking their violent anti-ICE rhetoric to a new level.
When you say you're going to hunt down ICE officers for enforcing the law like Nazis, that's not someone you can reason with.
This gang of poorly trained, shamefully led, mask-wearing goons.
I think we can all agree, ICE.
I don't think that the comparisons with Nazi Germany are extreme.
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades.
I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I am going to kill Donald Trump.
DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin in a statement said this, comparing ICE day in and day out to the Nazi Gestapo, the secret police and slave patrols have consequences. The men and women of ICE and CBP are fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The violence and dehumanization of these men and women who are simply enforcing the law must stop. Like from a now fired nurse. Watch this.
Get on Tinder, get on Hinge, find these guys. They're around. They're a nice agent. Bring some X-Lax and put it in their drinks. Get them sick. Get the poison ivy oak water, and I'm gonna put it into a water gun. Aim for faces, hands. Sabotage tactic, or at least scare tactic. All the medical providers, grab some syringes with needles on the end. Have them full of saline or succinylcholine, whatever.
Ben, that is sick.
It absolutely is. And obviously, if you're talking about the broader agenda here by an enormous number of celebrities and commentators to treat ICE like Nazis, the outcome of that is going to be people who treat ICE like Nazis. And that's unbelievably dangerous.
One of the people speaking up there was the Philly Attorney General, Larry Krasner, when he was doing exactly what you're talking about. And I mean, that's in a whole different category of where we've been already in recent, well, really since October 7th. Just your comment about that. I mean, that one was particularly jarring because to me, it seemed like election interference. He said, hold the people who support ICE now under what Donald Trump is doing and what those people are doing on their jobs under the administration. Hold them accountable when you vote next time.
Yes, I mean, it's unbelievable. The same people who had nothing to say about, say, October 7th, or have nothing to say about the Iranian regime right now, they're treating ICE as though they are the worst people on earth. And then they're saying they're going to use law enforcement to go after actual law enforcement. And Larry Krasner has presided over radical increases in crime in his city. And I think that you can see why, because when you are defending people who are doing illegal things while attacking the people who police all of that, that's what you end up with. This is unbelievably dangerous stuff. And the fact that people are playing with rhetorical fire this way is going to get more people killed.
Yeah, and potentially money behind it. I mean, I've seen things posted about George Soros having supported Larry Krasner and follow the money on that. Ben Shapiro, thank you very much for being in focus.
Let's bring in former GOP national spokesperson Elizabeth Pipko and conservative actor and former LA GOP vice chair Siaka Massaquoi. Thank you both for coming on. Elizabeth, to you first. The president in Iowa, he's talking about Minnesota. Watch.
So you read much about Minnesota, where, unbeknownst to the public, we have brought down crime very substantially in Minnesota. We've taken out thousands of hard criminals, hardened, vicious, horrible criminals.
The whole thing here, Elizabeth, is the president is trying to kind of offer this olive branch to compromise, but it seems very clear to a lot of people tonight that Minnesota continues to stand with the criminals in that state.
Yeah, I think that's more than obvious to the American people at this point. Trace, last week, you and I discussed some of the things that people may not have heard about in our country unless they watched Fox News. Here's another one for your audience. People need to know that the murder rate in our country has dropped to a 125-year low now under President Trump and his incredible actions of just 1 year in office. People don't know that that's what's going on. They don't know how much safer our country is becoming under his leadership. They don't see what we see. They don't know that the majority of people voted for President Trump because they know how many dangerous criminals are here. They know how many are here illegally, and they know what needs to get done. Thank God for President Trump and his leadership. But again, if people were to take a look at what's actually happening, how our country is responding, how well we're doing, they would be celebrating in the streets instead of protesting.
And you ask the left about this 125-year low murder rate, Elizabeth, and what do they say? Oh, it's because of, they're doing midnight basketball and some game. It is not because of that. There's only one common denominator, which is the border and kicking out hundreds of thousands of criminals. And oh, by the way, the FBI is plucking off the 10 most wanted like they were at a carnival somewhere. Siaka, sorry, on to you. I want to play the video of Ilhan Omar. First, she's going after ICE, and then somebody goes after her, spraying her with something. Watch both of these.
The level of violence, federal overreach, lawlessness carried out in the name of immigration enforcement is unprecedented. U.S. citizens are being assaulted and detained. Minnesotans are expected to carry their citizenship papers. People are dying in ICE custody. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Yeah, that person was arrested, by the way, Siaka. We don't know exactly what the motivation or what the spray was. It didn't appear to be harmful, but it smelled apparently bad. My question is that, a lot of untruths about ICE she laid out there at first, Siaka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've been watching over and over them demonize ICE, and ultimately what they're saying, and we got to push for this, is when they're telling ICE to get out, they're ultimately saying we don't want federal law to be enforced. They're asking for lawlessness while they scream during the election they're about the rule of law, but they're clearly not. We have to keep pressing on this. We have to keep pushing to make sure we get ICE into these places and find out what's going on. I said before on the show, Trump said he had something that would destroy the Democrats. What we're seeing, and I think why the rhetoric is still hot for these people, is because the fraud and their accomplices is actually going to be something that we haven't seen before. This might be the biggest RICO, if they go in that direction, that we've ever seen. And now to that guy who came up there, look, no one should go up, and we don't like political violence. We don't like violence in general on our side of the fence. And so no one should go up there and do that. But I always say, all the world's a stage, like Shakespeare said. We got to be clear. Why did no one go towards the asset, which was Ilhan Omar, to protect her till later on? That just seemed kind of weird to me, but that's me.
Yeah. And if there's going to be compromise, Elizabeth Pipko, you would think the governor would be leading the way. I want you to listen to the governor of Minnesota because he just said the following. Watch.
Tom Homan's a professional, which is a lot more than Bovino and Kristi Noem. But look, I think the thing we said is we're very clear about this, that we need these folks out of Minnesota. I'm not interested in a more efficient metro surge. I'm ready for them to get out of here.
In other words, he's not about to cooperate with these ICE detainers.
I don't know what to say, Trace. I feel like Democrats still don't get how elections work in our country, right? Which makes sense considering they tried to weaponize the DOJ instead of beating, their opponent at the ballot box. But Donald Trump won the election. Over 77 million Americans voted literally for this. They wanted to get illegal aliens out of our streets and out of our country. And Donald Trump is literally, like you said, extending that olive branch, trying to work with everyone that he can locally, trying to make this as safe and efficient as it can possibly be, again, because it's what the American people asked him to do. And Democrats just think that they can continue to oppose this because they want to keep these illegal immigrants and their voters, let's be honest, in the country and think that nobody's going to notice.
And meantime, Siaka, you have the left literally saying, we're going to use this for leverage. Watch this.
And at the end of the day, this is the leverage we have. We have to stop. And if it results in a partial government shutdown, this is the lever we have. It's time to stand up.
Democrats should be prepared to use every single available measure, including shutting down our government, to ensure that we get not just reform, but a complete change at the top.
Forget compromise. Abolish ICE and shut the government down. I got 30 seconds for you, Siaka.
I mean, Trace, how many times are we going to see these guys not want to compromise? Like you said, they lost the election. This is what the American people want and wanted, and they have to deal with it. And besides, this whole shutdown thing is just theater because their ICE is already funded for 3 years. So the shutdown's only going to do what it did last time, which is hurt the people they say they're for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Siaka, Elizabeth, thank you both.
Thanks for being with us here today. I'd love to start with this, Mark. What is the morale, what is the attitude, and what are the opinions of local police in St. Paul, and if you can, also speak to those in Minneapolis?
Thanks for having me, Will. I'm glad to be here. Morale, it's challenging right now. I mean, we are in really, at the local level, we've been put in an untenable position. And from the moment this all began, it kicked off in St. Paul back towards the end of November. And we were involved, it got called to a house where there's some ICE action going on. It lasted a few hours. We had to get involved with crowd control and use some chemical munitions to get out of there to keep people safe. And the rhetoric has just been nonstop since then. And it's been challenging for the cops because cities like St. Paul, Minneapolis have separation ordinances, and they really prevent the local law enforcement administrators from cooperating and communicating with ICE or Homeland Security's leadership. And it makes things really challenging for us. And the rhetoric's been unbelievable.
Set aside the separation ordinance and set aside the political leadership. I'm really curious. What do local police want? If I were interviewing a Minneapolis or a St. Paul police officer, do they want to cooperate with ICE?
I would say largely yes. We want to cooperate to the degree that it makes sense for us, which generally speaking is we don't take federal law enforcement action. It's not in our jurisdiction. But when it does come to crowd control, when it comes to keeping vehicles out of scenes, and those things start to impact public safety in the communities that we work in, that's where our specialty lies, and we've been preventing from doing that. So I think that the average cop in the Twin Cities thinks that maybe we should have been allowed to coordinate a little bit with some of the crowd control aspects of this, because we have a lot of formal.
If I understand, Mark, what you're saying, that local police don't want to be enforcing immigration law. And from what I hear from Tom Homan and other federal police officers, including ICE, they don't want local police enforcing immigration law. What they would like is twofold. One, honor ICE detainers, turn over criminals from county and city jails over to ICE. And two, do exactly what you're just saying. Show up and protect ICE when there is a problem with a hostile crowd, like in the situation with Alex Preddy. I would have to think if local police were present, holding back a perimeter while law enforcement operation is taking place, we would never have had the situation we had with Alex Preddy. And so what I'm hearing from you is those are two things that actually, when it comes to St. Paul police, they would love to help with ICE.
That's a true story, and I think that's opinion of many. Tragically, there's 2 deaths in our community now, and now we're at a point. And think about this: most reasonable people will tell you, of course, these jails should cooperate with ICE and these detainers, and when they have people in their jails, to release them to ICE. Why would we let them back out in the community? Not only have they committed crimes in our community, but they're also in our country illegally. I mean, that just makes sense for just about any reasonable person. Unfortunately, it's all politics, and you can't find a group of more apolitical people than cops. We have to go out there and do our jobs regardless of any politics. And so, yeah, it's been deeply frustrating, and it's so sad that it has come to this point where now you see the cooperation. I think AG Ellison today communicated with Bordazar Homan that jails, we're now going to start honoring these detainers and working with ICE on this stuff. I think there probably will be more communication now with the federal leadership and local leaders. And again, at the highest political levels, the rhetoric here has been unbelievable. For Governor Walz to say things like, we've never been at war with the federal government before, it's just reprehensible.
Okay, good. That would be my last follow-up, because you've led us down this path a couple of times in addressing the rhetoric. I think you can. I think your fingers have been on the pulse of the police in St. Paul. I want to ask you to speak more largely to the police across the state. What do they think, St. Paul police officers, of their political leadership?
I think probably we're largely disappointed in how things have gone. I think it could have gone much better from the start. And again, we've been in the middle of this, and we just want to go out and do our jobs in the community. And we want to keep members of the community safe, and we want to arrest bad guys that are doing bad things in our community. At the same time, that means supporting our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, the men and women of ICE and HSI and Border Security are all their husbands, their fathers, they're good people. They want to go out there and protect our country. And it's just been, we're really frustrated. And I don't think the average cop is too impressed with political leadership locally and at the state level.
All right. Mark Ross, thanks for bringing that perspective to us here today. Good afternoon and live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show, where we start with a Fox News alert. Later this hour, we're set to hear from President Trump. He's expected to sign an order launching a new initiative to address drug addiction. When that starts, we'll bring it to you live. Also in D.C. today is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. He's meeting with a number of officials, but not the president.
We are on the front lines of a very important battle. And it's important that we aren't silenced, that we aren't put down. This is not a time to bend our heads in despair or out of fear that we may be next, because if we do not speak up, if we do not step out, it will be your city that is next.
On the front lines in Washington, D.C. Meantime, Border Czar Tom Homan is actively on the ground in Minneapolis.
If we get these agreements in place, that means less agents on the street. More agents in the jail means less agents in the street. This is common sense cooperation that allows us to draw down on the number of people we have here. Yes, I said it. Draw down the number of people here. Because we have the efficiency and safety of the jails and the prison.
Will he get the cooperation he's looking for from Governor Tim Analogy Walz?
When things looked really bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held that line for the nation on that July 3rd, 1863. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota.
Gettysburg, Anne Frank, his latest, the first battle of the Civil War, per The Atlantic. Tim Walz fears a Fort Sumter moment in Minneapolis. The Minnesota governor warns of a national unraveling. What's next? Where does he go from here when it comes to analogies? Omaha Beach, likening President Trump to literally Satan? Where is the next rung on this ladder? And what is he really asking for here? Is he asking for a civil war? It would seem so, and it would seem those that are ready to take him up on that idea with rhetoric like this on our airwaves.
Do not compare ICE or Border Patrol agents to the Nazis. That's an unfair comparison. The Nazis were willing to show their faces.
This psychotic state, this obsession with fascism, Nazis, and civil war, is bleeding over widely now into at least people that used to matter, celebrities.
This is time for a revolution. It's time for it, and they don't even know that's what they're starting.
It's not becoming a fascist government, it is a fascist government.
There's a kind of fear in the air that I've never felt before, and it's not America.
Imagine what they're doing behind closed doors at detention centers with no cameras around.
Actually, Eva, we don't have to imagine. We can see it with our own eyes, thanks to a video put out by Congressman Tony Gonzalez. That shows children at a Texas detention center using computers, playing sports, doing schoolwork. 15 years ago, hearing from A-listers might have held some cultural weight. Today, it seems like a relic of the past. It seems like a joke. But maybe it still holds weight with some. When everyone is saying the same thing, it begins to feel coordinated, scripted, inauthentic. And as Joe Rogan points out, good people do seem to be getting caught up in it.
I think there's a lot of good people that are wrapped up in that think they're doing a good thing, and they really do think they're fighting fascism because they exist in these bubbles, and they're
I believe them.
Yeah,
I do believe them that they think that they're fighting against fascism, and I've debated with enough of these people on what historically fascism is in comparison to what they perceive it as, that I do think that they believe that 100%.
Right.
I just think it's an unjustified belief, and I think it's ridiculous. But
it's not accurate.
It's not accurate.
But you see, when you put a fascism label on something, it doesn't really matter if it's accurate. It just sticks. And that leads to videos like this. Chicago Teachers Union members protesting ICE at Target. demanding the company protect its employees from immigration enforcement. And just as a quick aside, only 43% of Chicago's 3rd through 8th graders were reading at their level last year.
I'm going to continue to speak on behalf of my constituents. We won't be intimidated in Minneapolis, and if there's any place to take inspiration from, don't take it from me. Take it from the 435,000 Minneapolis residents that call our great city home and the many more that come and go. Take it from the tens of thousands of people that have stood up and peacefully protested to say we love our neighbor, we care about our collective family, and we're going to do everything possible to keep them safe. Take inspiration from the people that are dropping their neighbors off to the grocery store or standing guard outside a daycare to make sure that their families don't get ripped apart. Take it from the countless people that are exhibiting this foundational love of both city and, importantly, country. This is an opportunity to be a patriot, to stand up for the kinds of liberties and freedoms that we all hold dear. As a nation of immigrants, it should not matter where you are from. We rise based on our own merit. We fall based on our own flaws. Whole communities are not held accountable for the actions of a few. In America, we've got that kind of due process. We got to stand by that due process where you actually have rights. Those rights are exhibited in the form of a court system. And the battlefield that we need to be operating on is that court system right now. Look, in cities, we have laws that we abide by. We have work that we need to do. And the reality is you can't exercise the extraordinary power that the federal government has to force nationwide outcomes on localized issues, leaving our own citizens as collateral damage in a hostile negotiation. By their own words, what we've seen this administration push for is this whole concept that might makes right. That might makes right. Stephen Miller has pushed for this concept, calling it the iron law of the world. That might makes right. Stephen Miller is wrong. Time and again, America has rejected the law of the jungle. Time and again, America has rejected this notion that might makes right. That notion and that belief that we are of something greater than simply force has allowed our country to rise in international influence and allowed great cities to be laboratories of democracy. We must reject the notion that might makes right again and again.
Matt, what was Homan's message today?
Well, Homan announced a pretty big change in sanctuary policy here in the state of Minnesota. Homan says the state attorney general, Keith Ellison, tells the Trump administration that jails can start notifying ICE when they are going to release a wanted criminal illegal alien.
I had a very good meeting with Attorney General Ellison, and he has clarified for me that county jails may notify ICE of the release dates of criminal public safety risks so ICE can take custody of them upon the release from the jail.
This is a pretty big shift, Sandra, because the Trump administration has been asking sanctuary jurisdictions like Minnesota to at least notify them when they are going to release wanted criminal illegal aliens. Now the state of Minnesota says it will notify them. It's really going to be up to jails and local jurisdictions and sheriffs whether they'll be willing to detain some of these wanted criminal illegal aliens as well. Now, also, Homan announcing that agents will focus on targeted enforcements moving forward, public safety threats and national security interests fortress. Our impression is that the agents will end those roving patrols here. That's what sources were telling us prior to Homan's announcement. The roving patrols, they were controversial because that's when the agents can just drive around, pop out of cars, question people, ask for ID. But Homan did say today that if you've entered the country illegally, it's, quote, never off the table for you to perhaps be questioned. Homan also was asked about a new video that appears to show Alex Preddy in a heated clash with ICE agents the week before he was shot and killed last Saturday. Preddy apparently spitting at an official ICE vehicle, kicking and busting out a taillight before being tackled to the ground. A family representative tells Fox the video is Preddy. He was injured but did not get medical care. An organization called the News Movement says it shot the video as part of a documentary. News Movement reports Preddy's gun is visible on him in the video. An attorney for the family writes, a week before Alex was gunned down in the street, despite posing no threat to anyone, he was violently assaulted by a group of ICE agents. Nothing that happened a full week before could possibly have justified Alex's killing at the hands of ICE on January 24th. The family attorney claims that Preddy was violently assaulted by ICE in this new video, but Border Patrol here on the ground tells me if you kick one of their cars, you break a taillight, it's a crime. And if Preddy was armed while he was kicked and spitting at the agents, it could be a felony because he was in the possession of a gun while committing another crime. Also, a little bit of some breaking news and an update here. DHS tells us that an illegal criminal alien from Ecuador who had prior sexual assault convictions, he escaped authorities here 2 days ago, ran into the embassy for Ecuador, and, quote, the consulate employees protected this public safety threat, and he is still at large. So DHS seeking that suspected criminal illegal alien. Back to you, Sandra.
Got it. Matt Finn out of Minneapolis for us. Matt, thank you. John?
All right, let's bring in Chad Wolf with the American First Policy Institute, who's also the former acting DHS secretary. To the last point that Matt Finn made there, had that person been handed over to ICE in honoring a detainer, probably could have avoided that situation.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's all really ICE is asking for, is that if you're in if you have an illegal criminal, or sorry, a criminal illegal alien in a county jail, and you're about to release them, let ICE know so that they can come in, pick that individual up, and then eventually remove them from the country. You're not asking Minnesota officials to enforce immigration law. It's basically a phone call. And to allow ICE to do their job in a jail setting that is much safer than on neighborhood streets.
Yeah, you know, Minnesota apparently, after the conversation with Tom Homan, says it's going to alert ICE when it's about to release a criminal illegal alien from prison, but that it's up to the locals whether or not to release them to ICE from county and local lockups. But that's been the problem all along, because apparently Minnesota, the state Department of Corrections, has been cooperating, but it's the local jails that haven't. So what changed? Anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the devil's in the details here. I think, you know, Minnesota leadership needs to lean on those county jails, city jails, and others to say, look, this is our policy. You need to notify ICE before you release a criminal illegal alien. I think that's the only thing that's going to change here. I mean, that's what ICE needs to enforce immigration law, and they can do that in a very safe environment versus, again, going out into communities and neighborhoods. Like if Minnesota, you know, if the AG and others are really serious about finding a compromise here, well, then they've got to do their part.
Yeah, I got some figures from DHS. I just want to set this up here before we go to the actual graphic. So there have been 3,500 arrests of illegal criminal illegal aliens in Minneapolis in the last 7 weeks since this surge happened. 11,000 in total in the state of Minnesota since Donald Trump took office. And we saw all of the chaos in the streets, all of the protests, 2 people killed as a result of interfering, getting involved in ICE operations. Take a look at these statistics from other states. There's been 88,000 criminal illegal aliens arrested in Texas, 34,000 in Florida, 30,000 in California, 12,000 in New York, 12,000 in Georgia, yet we haven't seen the same level of chaos in any of those states as we have in Minnesota, and in particular one city, Minneapolis. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I attribute that to two things mainly. One are sanctuary policies that direct local police and others to not cooperate with ICE. And then 2 would be the leadership and the dangerous rhetoric that we have seen from the governor and the mayor, the attorney general, and others, calling ICE, you know, not a law enforcement agency, the Gestapo, executioners. You know, we need to go to war was one phrase that they used with ICE. That tells activists, that tells violent agitators, that tells others in the community it's okay to impede law enforcement. It's okay to get in the middle of an operation. And then bad things happen, unfortunately. You don't see that in other jurisdictions. And so that's why I think that this funding charade that we now see in D.C. is just that. What they've done is they said, okay, sanctuary policy cities make it very difficult for ICE to do anything. And then when there's an incident there, our response is we're going to clamp down on ICE even more. We're going to weaken ICE even more, which is what Democrats in the Senate want to do, which is exactly the wrong approach. Yeah. If you're going to go after, quote, reforms, then you need to reform sanctuary city jurisdictions as well.
We're going to be talking to Senator Eric Schmidt about all of that coming up in our next hour. I just wanted to finish off with this because Tom Homan has been doing this a long time. He received Medal of Appreciation from Barack Obama more than 10 years ago when he was working for a Democratic president. Tom Homan, a year ago, warned us that this was going to happen. Listen to what he said this morning.
I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed. And there has been. I wish I wasn't right. I don't want to see anybody die. If you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. Again, ICE is making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president.
You know, what he said about a year ago is pretty prescient.
Yeah, it is. And again, ICE does the majority of their work out of sight, out of mind. They don't do it for the cameras. They do it in jail settings. They do it elsewhere. But you have certain jurisdictions, and I keep coming back to this because it's really important, because this is where we see the conflict and the chaos erupt. It's not in areas where local law enforcement supports ICE. It's in these other areas that just refuse to acknowledge that they have a mission to do. And then obviously will come in with very dangerous rhetoric as well.
Yep. They're forcing it out in the streets, literally. Jared, good to catch up with you. Thanks for joining.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.